Well, that's a good question from Willius. What should I have my 8-year-old learning so he could become a dev expert in Cardano and Midnight by the time he becomes a teenager? Hard to predict because by the time he's a teenager, Cardano is going to have gone through 5+ years of innovation and things are going to evolve and change. So my view is you really focus on first principles. And what you need to do is give your child a love of three things. And if you get those love of three things, then everything is going to work its way out. First, you get him to really understand that the world is malleable around him and to know that he can influence and change it. And you do that by teaching him a little bit about chemistry and actually have him do some engineering stuff like get a Raspberry Pi, get a little robot, and basically build something with them. Take something apart and put it back together. Problem with the world around us right now is this is all like disposable and fixed. You can't open it, you can't play with it. It's magic. When my grandfather was growing up, he'd buy a vacuum cleaner and come with a manual on how to repair it, and that's a retail purchase. Why? Because there was an expectation that when you purchased something, you had a relationship with it. You'd work on your car, you'd work on your thing. So that maker mindset, that tinkerer mindset is the very first thing. Second, get familiarity with data science and Python, because it then gives you the ability to navigate so many things in life, all the stems. And by speaking a programming language, by actually having Python competency, you have access to everything in the AI world and all this other stuff. And they'll just intuitively leverage and use that push forward. Third, understand the connection between markets, networks, and the internet and these social physics that work. And there's actually a really great book. Let me give it to you. 8-year-old cannot read it. Yeah, here we go. And I actually talked to Kleinberg about a second edition. I called him up and I said, you gotta write a second edition on this one. Wah! Okay, it's called Networks, Crowds, and Markets, Reasoning About a Highly Connected World. This is the book that I read that convinced me to enter the cryptocurrency industry full time. So, I read it around 2011. And basically, what this book is all about is the intersection of networks and social networks, computer networks, markets, and all the social dynamics that exist there. And so it gives you all the foundational knowledge. And so it starts with an overview. It talks about graph theory. Then after you get through the entire network part, then you start learning about game theory and how game theory works. And you learn a lot about markets. Then you learn about information networks and the World Wide Web. Okay. And then you talk about network dynamics, population models. So kind of like complex adaptive systems and system theory and these types of things. And then you work your way into institutions and aggregate behavior. So when you put all these things together, what's the emergent property of it? I don't quite know how to make this understandable for an 8-year-old yet. It's not even understandable for most adults, but this is the blueprint for why crypto worked. When I read this book, it became obvious to me that money wants to be free. If information's free, value transfer has to be free. It has to be instantaneous around the entire world. And they just nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. And the problem was they were looking at it from an academic lens. And so there was a lot of stuff there, but there's a translation mismatch to the common language. But systems theory is just so incredibly important. And there's actually a wonderful organization, Santa Fe Institute. Can't type today. Hands are still a little messed up from the jungle. And they have a whole bunch of education and things on applied complexity and so forth. But these guys are like the OGs of complexity theory, systems theory, these things. But wonderful book, highly recommend. So find a way to deconstruct this. In fact, we could give it a shot. So we have this fact-checking EV. So let's ask our AI. All right. Let's role play. You're an expert on children education. And here is a website. Design a way to explain these concepts to an 8-year-old. All right, you ready for your one shot? Oh no, Claude failed. All right, let's try ChatGPT. Sorry, Anthropic. You guys let me down, dog. You let me down. Okay, GPT 4.0. All right. I'm loving it. All right. Where were we? So what we're going to do is we're going to copy paste this into here. And let's see what happens. Searching the web. Browsing. All right. To explain the concepts from the book Networks, Crowds, Markets to an 8-year-old, we can use simple analogies. Networks, crowds, markets. Networks being an imaginary playground where all your friends are connected by ropes, and each friend can pull on the rope to send a message or help others. This is like how people are connected on the internet or social groups. Crowds, think of a school assembly where everyone gathers. The more people join, the bigger the group, and their actions can influence what everyone else does, just like in a crowd. Markets, imagine a school fair where kids trade toys. Some toys are more popular, so kids are willing to trade more for them. This is how markets work, where people buy and sell things. There you go. Pretty cool. So it's a kind of the surface, but in a few years, these tools are going to be so powerful that they actually can work with you Socratically, and you can design out a curriculum. But the intersection of networks and crowds and markets, single most valuable thing you can learn. Learn the world is malleable around you, and really invest a lot in that and restore agency and make your kid a really good problem solver. Get a love of computation and ability to communicate and interact with a computer. If they learn Python and they learn a little bit about data science, very easy to get into AI. And then that's a core skill set that will make them quite valuable. And then networks, crowds, markets, once you have that intersection, you're good to go. And the rest will take care of itself. They'll find the right cryptocurrencies and the right blockchain. And then eventually we'll develop enough of a love to self-study, because that's how you get to places. Everything in life, even mathematics, is malleable. And to prove a point, I have a book here. It's one of my favorite books, actually. Very dry. It's from Joel David Hampkins, Lectures on the Philosophy of Mathematics. She bought a few copies for the office because I give them out from time to time. And basically, it covers numbers, rigor, infinity, geometry, proof, computability, incompleteness, set theory. It's a really good 8-chapter tour de force of what makes math and why do we do math the way we do. And if you read it, you start realizing a lot of those things that you thought were set in stone and solid were just like your opinion, man. And you can build completely consistent systems that have different rules if one so chooses. Probably not as useful as the ones that we do. Why is that important? Because if math isn't as complete as we want it to be, then why the hell should the laws be and society be? The world is malleable. The people around you are always going to try to convince you that it's not, because they benefit from the way it's structured. The only thing that is consistent is change. Everything changes. Everybody dies. Everything resets. Everything is in a constant cycle of death and rebirth. And the sooner you can learn that lesson, the more you can learn that lesson, the more enjoyable life becomes, but more importantly, the more agency you end up having over it. And eventually you have the ability to change everything. You just have to have the courage to try. So my last piece of advice is, whatever you teach your son, teach him that failure is okay, as long as he learns to get back up and do it again till he gets there. And with that, my friends, it's been about 2 hours. Haven't done an AMA in a long time, but man, I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I always love spending time with every one of you. Smartest community in all of crypto. You guys are the best community. We got a lot to do. We're always growing. We're always changing. I'm going to go get some barbecue while I still can. Cheers.